Hi guys, my name is Kirsty. Welcome to Upside Down Books. Today we're going to be looking at my spring TBR. I had to think for a hot second there whether it was autumn or spring. I got very confused. My neighbours have, of course, decided that as soon as I have sat down to film that now is the time to make a lot of noise. So we are going to try and film this in between all the clunking and thunking that is going on in their backyard, but if you hear strange noises, that is what is happening. So I don't usually do TBRs, but I don't mind the idea of doing a quarterly TBR with the seasons of 10 books, which is what we've got today, that I would like to get around to in the next 3 months. So we're going to have a look at some of the books that are currently on my high priority list that hopefully by the time the Christmas swings around I will have finished and moved on to the next batch of books. Now this TBR consists of a few advanced reader copies that I have requested and really want to get around to reading, a couple of other books, or I think just one book now that's left from Christmas 2018. I've been trying this year to get all of my Christmas 2018 books read before Christmas 2019 comes around so that people don't feel like they're wasting their time giving me gifts. And then a couple of just other books that I am keen as bean to read. As usual, I'm going to start with the audiobooks first so that I don't forget them. So the first audiobook that is on this list that I will definitely be getting around to, and I'll be very surprised if I don't read my audiobooks because I have a much smaller TBR for audiobooks that I rotate through. And the next one on the list is Predator's Gold by Philip Reeve. So this is the sequel to Mortal Engines. It's a sequel to Mortal Engines, which I also listened to on audiobook, and I'm super excited to be moving on to the sequel. So that is lined up next. I imagine that will get done in probably October. Really hoping that this series is going to continue being as good. I don't really hear much about it these days. I've never spoken to somebody who has read it and recommended it to me, and I haven't really heard much about the film since that was released, so I'm not really sure what the general vibe is on this series, but I loved book 1, so fingers crossed that book 2 continues to be awesome. The second audiobook that I have lined up is The Fry Chronicles, which is also a sequel. It's a sequel to a memoir. So it's Stephen Fry's memoirs. He has 3 memoirs, and I have read his first one, which was Moab is My Washpot, which was hilarious and interesting and fascinating. He has such an interesting life, so this was super cool to have a look into it. So of course I'm going to be continuing on. However, I did read the physical copy of full format of the first book, and I don't know why I didn't. I think I had it long before I got into Stephen Fry's narrations on audiobooks, but since then I have listened to his Heroes series, or his Greek mythology series, all of the Harry Potters he's done, so naturally I'm going to be continuing this series via the audiobook because he is such a great narrator. The next few books I have to show you are some arcs that I have specifically requested from authors. Not the authors, from the publishers, and so I'm really looking forward to getting around to reading them. First one is Pan's Labyrinth by Guillermo del Toro and Cornelia Funk, and I am anticipating this one so much. I've also heard some really good things about this as well, which is super exciting. Now, I'm really excited about this one in particular because I watched the film on a friend's recommendation, and it wasn't really my cup of tea. I found it quite... For like a dark fairy tale retelling, it was seriously dark, and I don't know, the film just was a bit strange and weird and gory. Well, not that gory, but a little bit gory, and I don't know, but I'm hoping that I'm going to enjoy it more in book format because that particular type of genre and style of story I do tend to enjoy more when I read it. So this is a new release. The movie is the original story, directed or written by Del Toro. So this is made after the event of the film, and I'm super excited that Cornelia Funk has also worked on this one because she wrote the Inkheart series, which is super exciting. So this is quite a short book. I think I'll be able to sit down and read this quite quickly when I do set aside the time, but this will be one of the next arcs that I will be getting onto. Following that, I have The Warehouse to read, which is a dystopian book about a company called Cloud, and it's sort of got a monopoly over how the world is running, but there are some secrets within it. So I'm excited to dive into this one. I have heard some really good feedback on this one. People have told me that I will just sit down and binge it in one sitting, so I am ready to set aside a weekend where that is exactly what I will do. I can't wait to dive in. We have a dual perspective here. We have people trying to riddle out the secrets of a corrupt corrupted company, and what more could you possibly ask for in a dystopian story? The final book of the arcs that I have lined up to read in this coming quarter of the year is The Ventriloquists by E.R. Ramseypour. Now this one is quite a thick book, but I am absolutely not deterred by that at all. I have been so excited to have this one just sitting on my shelf ready to be read, but I just haven't quite got there because I've been trying to get through so many other advanced copies that I have received. But this is definitely gonna happen. I can guarantee you by the time I get to Christmas this will be read. This is set in World War II, takes place in Nazi-occupied Belgium. This follows a group of characters who are in charge of printing a newspaper and writing articles in it, and the Nazis obviously want them to put in Nazi propaganda with very specific ideals. Now, they don't want to do that, so they are willing to put their lives at risk by doing what they want to do, all for a joke sort of things. I think this sounds like it's going to be a wonderful story. Sounds somewhat inspired off The White Rose, which is an actual group that refused to publish Nazi propaganda and were all executed for it, so I'm hoping that this story doesn't have so much of a sad and dark ending as the actual story, but we will see. It's certainly a lot bigger than I was expecting this story to be, but I'm very excited for this one. Now, the one book that I have lined up for the next 3 months that is purely something of my own picking that I have bought for myself and just want to read is Soul of the Sword by Julie Kagawa. This is the sequel to Shadow of the Fox, which was absolutely brilliant and one of my favourite reads of last year. This has actually been released now for a month or two, I can't quite remember when it came out, and I have just been meaning to get around to reading it, but I have not been able to justify picking it up when I have so many other books that I need to read before I get around to this one. So I am hoping to plan my time and set this in so that I can actually sit down and read this guilt-free at some point before Christmas. If you don't know anything about this story, it is a story inspired by Japanese mythology, and we have several characters. We have a fallen samurai, we have a young girl who is a shapeshifter, and we have a sort of assassin character with many more elements going on and lots of dark aspects to it, and they're all on this sort of quest to retrieve the parts of this ancient scroll and to stop it getting into the wrong hands. It's this beautiful little journey with this real mishmash characters. Would highly recommend reading if you have not read Shadow of the Fox yet. So the final 4 books that I have are all here for the same reason, and that is that this year I have been trying to get through some books that I have been given as gifts, whether it's for Christmas last year, previous birthdays, or just random gifts that my parents might have given me at some point. And usually I'm absolutely terrible at getting through this backlog of books that I have got. So this year I have been trying to prioritize these, and I'm super excited because I only have one Christmas book left to go from last year, and that one is First Life by Gina Showalter. This was given to me by my sister, so I cannot wait to read it. I've honestly heard a number of very average reviews about this story, but I really want to read it myself, so I am anticipating that I am probably going to be let down, but I'm going to go in hoping for the best with an open mind, and we're just going to see how we go. What I know about this book is that this is all about what happens after you die, and thinking that it would be easy and life would be better, but there are these choices and 2 different worlds you can live in and a rivalry going on. That is my main very basic comprehension of this plot, but we'll see if I enjoy it. I really hope I just can enjoy it for face value, but I have a feeling this might be a dud. The next book I have is a book that my dad actually gave to me a long time ago, and that is Soulmates by Holly Bourne. This book has been plaguing my thoughts. This is something that my dad brought back from a trip abroad for me once, and I always thought that was really sweet and I really want to read it, but I just sort of have never gotten around to it. I'm fully aware that this is probably going to be filled with insta-love. It's also quite a hefty book. It's nearly 550 pages long. The blurb is very brief. It says, "Soulmates do exist, just not as you think. Every so often, 2 people are born who are the perfect match for one another. Soulmates. But what if meeting your soulmate is earth-shattering? Literally. An epic, electrifying, and extraordinary debut about falling in love." So I have no idea what this book is about. I don't even remember why I first picked it as something I wanted to read, but I am so excited at the prospect of finally getting around to reading this. The next book that I have lined up is also another book that my dad has given to me as a gift at one point, and that is The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. Now, this is a bit of a challenge book for me because this is definitely something that I know why I haven't read it. It's a classic and it's big, and I have been procrastinating reading it because classics are intimidating. So I am challenging myself to actually pick this up in the next few months and read it and enjoy it. I don't see why I won't enjoy this book. I think it will take me a little while to get through. It is 650 pages long. I did not think it was that long. No, I'm wrong. It's nearly 750 pages long. This book is huge and it doesn't look it at all. Oh god. I actually don't even really know what The Three Musketeers is about. I have not seen this TV adaptation with the wonderful Peter Capaldi in it, so I don't know. I just assume it's gonna be, you know, some swashbuckling times, but I'm very nervous. This book has me nervous and I think is going to be the most likely book that will not happen on this TBR. So this brings me to the final book on my spring TBR, and this book was actually given to me by my mum, and that is The Elegance of the Hedgehog by Muriel Barbary. Again, another book that I have slowly been putting off because I've actually heard quite a few bad things about Barbary's work in general. People just don't seem to be enjoying her books, but this is quite small. I really like the setting. It is in Paris. I don't know what era it's set in. I think it might actually be contemporary. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is just a contemporary book, but it has been on my TBR for such a long time and I'm fed up of it being on my TBR, so I am again challenging myself to read this. This is a much easier challenge as this is just shy of 300 pages long, so it's quite a short story, but we will see. I couldn't even succinctly tell you what this is about, so if you're interested in a contemporary set in France and I think it's following a young girl as the main character, then go ahead and check that one out on Goodreads. So those are all the books that I am planning on reading in the next 3 months over spring before Christmas and summer arrives. I hope I will get around to all of them. That would be wonderful. I also hope that I get around to 3 times as many books in that time, but that is wishful thinking, very wishful thinking. So let me know down in the comments below if you have read any of these books, if you're planning on reading any of these books, or if you have heard any good things about them. I would love to know. But other than that, I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.